You are now tuned in to Hollywood Wayz with Doug and Breezy. Oh, hey Ted.
Welcome to Hollywood Wayz. It's just a crazy world over here at Action Park Media. But Breezy has a forced call, which Kevin Connolly, there were some angry people online that you were fired. Okay,
I stepped down, and now you're dragging me back in as a filler.
Just when you thought you were out.
But I'm just going to sit back and enjoy this conversation because I think there's going to be a special.
I do want you to sit, but can you just because I know you were a big fan of a forced call. So could you just explain to people what that is? Because when on Entourage, when we had the forced calls, you loved them.
So a forced call on a movie set or on a TV show is an actor has to get a 12-hour turnaround. So if you wrap at 8 o'clock at night, they can't bring you in until 8 a.m. Sometimes production can't afford to do that, and they need you in at 6 or 7 or whatever it is, so they have to give you what's called a forced call, and that's also a decent little amount of cash.
A little extra money.
So Breezy got a forced call. As bad as that might be for this episode of Hollywood Wayz, good for Breezy, because a forced call is a good thing.
All right, so we're happy for Breezy, and I'm excited today because we got a guest who's A, a friend, B, an Entourage star, C was almost Andrew Dice Clay's freaking brother-in-law or something, which we're going to get into. But a little story about a restaurant. Dan Tana's is one of the most famous restaurants, used to be until Craig took over Craig's started Craig's, and now that isn't. But Dan Tana's is the place where Lion Eyes was written by Don Henley and Glenn Walsh. And it's just the place when you come to L.A. that everybody used to tell you back in the day you got to go to. So in 91, when I first came out here and heard there's a great Italian restaurant in LA, I'm like, okay, I got to go to Dan Tana's, which I walked into this place and I saw Craig in his tuxedo at the front. And I said, hey, I'd love a table. And I honestly think he said 2 hours. I'm not kidding. So I sat at the bar drinking.
Sounds about right.
But that's because I liked them.
Jerry Seinfeld walked in, shook hands with Craig, went right to a table. And I said, if I ever make it in this town, I'll be able to get a table. So
congratulations.
I can now get a table. But Craig Susser, who is a friend, started now the hottest restaurant in L.A. where everybody wants to go. And he's also got some businesses going, so I want to talk to you. But anyway, welcome, Craig. How you doing?
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad to be here. And I'm glad we're all back kind of opening and it's starting to feel a little bit more normal.
So you start Craig's, 7 years ago?
No, it's 2011. We're coming up on 10 and a half, 11 years. Look, you're lucky to get past the first year. You're thrilled that you're accepted and it becomes that like spot, right? And you're just trying to maintain that. And all of a sudden COVID hits and you're devastated. Everybody's devastated. Everybody's scared. And you're just trying to take care of the people that work there and you're trying to make it through. And we did. We've made it through and we've got a back patio now and a front patio. And now it's like double the size, and that brings all kinds of other issues and problems, right? But we're here, we're making it through, and I think the thing that I've learned the most from the whole time is to be more flexible and to be a little bit more nimble. And I kind of wake up in the morning now and I go, I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll deal with it.
Yeah,
and it's kind of neat.
Things are changing so quick, and for you, I know you were at Dan Tana's for 20 years.
22, yeah.
And again, it was the hot place that everybody wanted, and you wanted to buy Dan Tana's. That was your plan, correct?
That was, yeah. So Dan was like a second dad to me. We had a plan in place. I was going to buy it. We had some expansion plans. My dad passed away that August, and then about 2 months later, he pulled me up in the office and said he sold it to somebody else. And it was devastating and really heartbreaking.
And he did this behind your back.
Let's just say he didn't do it as a gentleman. He could have said, hey, I got this crazy offer. Do you want to match it? He just took it and ran with it. And so, look, the universe, God, whatever, has bigger plans for all of us. And sometimes the most horrible things that happen to us turn out to be the greatest gifts. And there wouldn't be a Craig's if that moment hadn't happened. And we've since kind of reconciled. I mean, we've talked about it, and he talks about how proud he is that it's there. And look, a lot of the success of Craig's is what I learned at Dan Tana's from Dan, from Mike the bartender, from Jimmy, who, Mike passing away during COVID is just so heartbreaking. Yeah. Because he was such a big part of this town.
So to give people a little background, Mike, the bartender at Dan Tana's who passed away from COVID, to say that he was the most hands down legendary bartender
for sure
in LA was at Dan Tana's. And he was the guy.
He was the ringleader. I mean, I got my work ethic. I got my sense of humor. I understood. I got to read people. He was a lot of things to a lot of people. He wasn't just a bartender.
And what were you doing there? You came out from New York to do what? Did you want?
Oh, no. So my dad retired. He was in the garment business, like every good Jew from New York. And so he retired. I was 14. Went to high school out here. Didn't have a lot of friends. Was going to college. Fell in love with the idea of acting. And like every good actor, I got myself a waiter's job, and then I fell into Dan Tana's. I was the first person hired in 6 years. I was literally, it's a different era. I would walk up to tables. I would say, "Hey, good evening, guys. Can I get you a drink?" And they would literally tell me to F off. And they weren't kidding.
Right.
I had like tears in my eyes, like for 6 months. They just tortured me. And then it was one of those things where they slowly kind of broke you down so much that they molded you into who they wanted you to be.
Right.
And I started out as a back waiter, as a weekend bartender. And then slowly you start to kind of become the crew, and you start to become the waiter that people request and the bartender that people want to see. Because I was a weekend bartender there for 15 years.
Wow.
And so I learned everything I know about the restaurant business. I kind of learned it's kind of old school, kind of hard knocks.
Right, cash register, nothing digital, none of that stuff.
And
Mike, the bartender, started working at Dan Tana's in 1968.
That's unreal.
I mean, that's the year that Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King got shot, to put that into perspective for
and the year I was born.
Younger people, and the year you were born. But Craig,
younger people.
Question about Dan Tana's. One of the things about Dan Tana's was that it would stay open. You could. I think they've tightened it up a little bit, but at one point you could walk in there at 12:50 and order a full meal.
The reason is, so when they first opened, I think they closed at 10:30, 11 o'clock, and right next door is the Troubadour, and all these young performers were like, they'd go on stage and they'd come out at like 11:30, 12 o'clock, and they had nowhere to eat. And Mike would be like, Dan would be, come on over here, grab a plate of pasta and a glass of wine, and it just turned out that it was Linda Ronstadt and Elton John and the Eagles. And you think about all these legendary artists that came out of the Troubadour in the early 70s, and Dan Tana's became their home. And that's kind of what I think really is how Tana's became this landmark.
And little unknown fact, maybe you remember, Kevin, but season 1 premiere of Entourage, afterwards at 12:30 we went. I'm in a limo, Joe Vitarelli, you were meeting me there, and we pulled up to Dan Tana's, and a girl literally just rammed into the back of us as we were stepping out of the car. She got out of her car and passed out in the middle of Santa Monica Boulevard. And it was a miracle that no one was hurt,
Well,
let alone
a regular
killed.
night at Dan Tana's.
Yeah. So
Craig is not surprised to hear that story.
No, that's kind of one of the tame ones. But that's where I learned that, you got to see people through their ups and downs, right? So the greatest compliment I get about Craig's is it's the place you want to go to celebrate. It's also the place you want to go to commiserate. And that is what Tana's was, and that's kind of what I took away. And it's multi-generational, right? You got the grandparents, you got the parents, you got the kids, and it becomes aspirational for everybody. And the cool thing about it is it's not only multi-generational, it's people with money and people without money. People that haven't hit yet, but you're just like, I met somebody 5 years ago, a great guy named Michael Ratner, who's doing like everybody's videos now, and he's a great dude. And 5 years ago, he really wasn't working. I was just like, there's something about him that I love, and I just want to make sure that he's part of our fold. And now he's like killing it, but that's 5-6 years later, and it's just
amazing what you've created there, because it's like Cheers. You walk in there, it's the only place, I don't go out very often, it's the only place that I would go in Hollywood that I would see so many people that I know that are friendly faces. So what is it that made you create it like that, and how are you getting these people to come back so often and feel so welcome?
Look, first, I'm grateful and I'm humbled by it, but I think there's a method to it, and I think I learned it from Tana's, and that is creating that kind of family style atmosphere. And people always say to me, I don't understand, how do you become a regular? How do you get the 8 o'clock reservation? I'm like, well, take the early one, take the late one, get to know me, get to know, Patty and Peter and Nick at the front door, get to know the servers, get to know the bartenders, become part of the family.
Right.
It has nothing to do with who you are. It has to do with whether or not you're one of our regulars.
Right.
Now, a lot of them are in the business, or some of them might be famous, but that's not the reason they're getting the tables. The reason they're getting the tables is because they're a regular.
Right.
I mean, there's also a bunch of accountants and lawyers you wouldn't know if you fell over them.
Right.
Right. So that's what kind of creates it. And then we all want to see the people that we know. And it's a really small town. I mean, LA is a big town, but it's a really small town.
Yeah.
And so I think, you actually go out and you're hoping to run into people. I think one of the greatest things to see as we're coming out of the pandemic is watching people kind of reconnect with people that they haven't seen in a couple of years. I mean, you're all used to working together.
Yeah.
And so it's fun to watch everybody kind of like climb over booths again and say hello and like talk about projects they used to work on or what's coming out.
Right.
Like, well, whatever's
what
going
life
on.
used to be like.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
it is, though.
It's great. And that's what's kind of fun to watch and see and to be, for lack of a better word, the vessel of that place.
Yeah.
That's what's neat.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had a project start at your place. The thing, we'll see if it ever goes, but with Thierry Henry and Matthew Vaughn started at Craig's. That was where we came up with it.
Somebody said to me a long time ago, you shouldn't charge for dinner. You should just take a piece of everybody's project.
You would do well.
I probably would have done
Especially now that you have every social media star eating there every night.
So that's a whole new concept to me, right?
Yeah, so I want to explain that because I kind of got lost in the social media influencing thing. I didn't really know what was happening during the pandemic. And then the first night I went out, like in a year probably, was I went to Craig's. And all of a sudden it was all these kids in like wife beaters with big cameras like the old days shooting films.
Right.
Like, when did this happen and what was the change here?
I don't know what happened, but it goes back to being kind of nimble and flexible and accepting of how the times that we're in, right? So I can't be rigid, right? So all of a sudden I started noticing people coming in and people were making a big fuss out of certain, and I'm like, who is that?
Right.
What do they do? And,
Right.
and so as people started to explain it to me, what's fascinating about the time is you don't need anybody's permission to entertain people, and people are finding interesting people all over whatever channel they're looking at, YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is. And they no longer have to ask the studio's permission to do what they love, which is kind of an interesting thing, right? Music companies are now looking at TikTok to find the next star, right? They may not be going to the Troubadour to listen to them.
Yep.
So it's kind of like turning it on its head. But for me as a restaurateur, you have to look at where your next clients are coming from. The worst thing that a restaurant can do is age out.
Right.
I mean, I lived through Chasen's doing that. I lived through other restaurants and watching them. They're great customers are in their 30s and 40s, and then all of a sudden 23 years later, it's like, it's kind of like old. It doesn't feel quite right. But by the way, I love the older crowd, so you definitely want them to be a
But that's
part of
what's
it.
so great about Craig's, and I am getting to the older crowd at this point, but I have so many friends who are 60s, 70s, and I also have friends who are in their 30s, and you can walk in there, and everybody's there, and everybody kind of feels like they know each other.
Well, because I want everybody to feel comfortable. Some restaurants I think target a certain demographic, and it can get a little fickle if you're so closely aligned.
Right.
I think it's really important to kind of like a wide net.
So, but Craig, you were interested in entertaining when you were out here in the beginning. And I know, you came on Entourage as an actor. So while you were at Tana's, while the biggest producers and directors in the world, were you also acting and were you trying to make connections? Or?
Yeah, I mean, like I was a 22-year-old guy running around town. People want to know why, like how I know so many quote unquote famous actors and stuff. We were all 22-year-old idiots running around town. We didn't know what we were doing and we didn't know what we were going to get into. And so I was in an acting class and I was waiting tables and we were all kind of running around, and I loved acting. Somebody said to me really early on, they're like, you're 20, they're like, you're a really good actor, but you better find something to do for the next 25, 20, because you're not going to be even interesting, in that business until you're 45 or 50. And I didn't understand what that meant. But now looking back at it, you see certain actors and actresses, they become more interesting as they get older, or some get it right out of the bat, right out of the box. So I liked it. I had a little bit of success doing it. I was waiting tables, living the life in LA. It was great. And then
it's also a great time in LA, just period. Right?
Yeah, no, it was really cool. There was no cell phones. There was no, it was just great. And then a couple of things happened. So I got a role in Patriot Games with Harrison Ford, right? I'm going to be like a fighter jet pilot. And I go through the reading, and I go through the fitting, and I go through everything, and then they call me and they go, I don't know, I'll tell you this, but we couldn't get the jet, and like the whole scene got cut. We're just gonna use stock footage. I'm like, oh. So
that wasn't a depressing day.
Well, at least he didn't get replaced by another actor. He got replaced by stock footage. So there's something there.
But it's fine. So then, like, you're like, okay, well, that's the breaks and that stuff. And then, like, the same producers are like, okay, that we're doing The General's Daughter with like Jimmy Woods and John Travolta. And we'll find you something. So I read for it and I get the role and do the whole thing with the fitting and everything like that. And they call me. It was like, I don't know to tell you this, but we were tightening up the script and like that scene's gone. And you're like, okay, that's a natural progression of like acting. I'm just like, okay, I'm not sure this is going to work out, right? So all of a sudden, you know, I became the guy that was like, all right, I got 2 scenes, I got 10 lines. Who do we get that's not going to mess up our day? It was really basically the niche that I fell into,
right?
Because everybody knew me from tennis. So I'd come in, I'd nail it in 2 takes. I knew everybody. I was easy to have on set. I was like, out.
It's very important, by the way, for people listening.
I feel very proud, though, that Connolly and I, we said we'd get you on Entourage. We delivered. We didn't cut the scene. We didn't put stock footage.
But to be able to count, you do need to be able to count on an actor, right?
Yeah.
It's like you don't want to take a chance on a wild card. Time is always tight. And it's like, oh, look, we know for sure that this guy can come in here, knock it out. He's going to be sober. Knock it. You know what I mean? It's you count on those, especially in the smaller roles.
I learned a long time ago, and I try to give that advice to the young actors that are coming through. I'm like, dude, if you get the role, or be kind, be cool. It's an 18-hour day. Don't be drama.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Literally,
and
go
appreciate
in.
it.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a gift.
It's so easy to become entitled. I'm
be
watching.
Easy to work with.
Are any of you guys watching? The Netflix has this documentary series on the making of movies where they go behind the snes, which they did RoboCop last night, which was amazing.
The movies that we love, the movies that made us, right?
And Peter.
By the way, I think I was an extra in RoboCop. Peter Weir, right?
Well, Peter Weller.
Peter Weller. Right.
All right. So Paul Verhoeven directed RoboCop, and Peter Weller, which you look at that movie now as just a classic, and it was perfect, but the production was a nightmare, and Peter Weller refused to say lines, and so Verhoeven said fuck off and threw him off the set, and it was actually going to have the stuntman play the part until Peter Weller came back. So I think it is a lesson for every actor to know to appreciate everything that you get, and sometimes a set can be awful, but
also you don't realize it. Like Billy Fraker, who was a fantastic, famous cinematographer and worked with Brando like a bunch, and he always used to say to me, I was a bartender, and he would say to me, be easy to work with and find your light. I spent 4 hours lighting you. Find your light. And it's all. And then the other thing he always used to say is, it's all in your eyes.
Yeah.
I don't care what you're doing. If you're not thinking it, the camera's not picking it up. And I was like, whoa. Like, so you get all these little tidbits. Yeah. And then as I started getting more jobs, I realized I was getting more jobs because I actually had the technique. And I did enjoy it. And to me, it was like icing on the cake. I was making a good living. I was doing what I was doing. And every once in a while, I got to pop out and be with you guys in your environment, really enjoy it, and then go back to my world. And that's kind of what happened for the next 7 or 8 years. I mean, Neil Moritz put me in, he put me in Prom Night, which is where I met Idris Elba, when we had it was like 4 straight night shoots downtown in Hollywood. And we're about to wrap. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. And Neil says to me, where are you going? I go, what do you mean, where am I going? I'm going home. He goes, no, I got another production 1.5 miles away, and we need somebody. I go, well, what am I doing? He goes, just go. They'll take care of it. So I go. It's a Patrick Dempsey movie called Maid of Honor. And I play a lawyer in the back of a car, and I'm negotiating the number of BJs that this girl's going to give a guy that she's marrying. And that was like that
probably doesn't play
scene
today, Craig.
Well, it's just but that's the scene.
Yeah.
So it was just like but I got to meet it was like cool. It was a great day that just came from the fact of like, here's a guy I know and I trust, and I know he'll nail it, and he won't cost me the day.
Right. So is the acting dream over, or you'll entertain it if something comes to you? But
I think every once in a while somebody will come to you that you respect, and it gives you a little piece of advice. And I think when Craig's became kind of Craig's, they pulled me aside and they said, it's an odd look.
Right.
Maybe just take a step back.
Right.
So, and not that they were like offers were piling up.
Yeah.
But it was just like,
I agree with that though.
Yeah.
odd. It could. How about this? It could be an odd look. Maybe not.
Yeah,
but
it was just
there
like-
you run a risk of it being like, well, what's going on?
Are
right?
you still that guy?
Right.
I'm like, no. But if a really cool role came along and it was really people I wanted to work with, great. But I don't chase it. I don't
But the
talk
truth
about
is,
it.
what a lot of people don't understand, the restaurant business is hard, and you are there.
Well, he also works 1 million hours a week.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You are always there, pretty
Yeah.
much.
I left there last night at midnight. I was back at 8:00. Did some morning work. Just got some stuff done. I mean, the restaurant it's not this quaint little place anymore. It's a big. We're almost double the size.
And you're also running a business now. You started this vegan ice cream that
Yeah.
you're like putting in markets all over the
Yeah,
country.
so that was actually a fun going back to influencers and stuff like that. So back in the old days, like 8 or 9 years ago, you influenced the restaurant business by having the right people in the restaurant. And there were a couple of people way back when I first started. I'm like, oh, that's funny. I'm not seeing them. And I ran into somebody in the street and I said, what's up? I'm not, you okay? Did I offend you? Are we good?
Right.
He's like, dude, I love you, but I'm a vegan. And I'm like, oh. He goes, and I'm not eating a plate of vegetables.
This is not Dabney Coleman.
No, definitely not. So I said, all right, I'll make you a prepared dish. Just give me like a day or two's notice. So sure enough, it was a Thursday. They called. They said, we're going to come in on a Friday. And we made a composed, and Chef Kirsten was great. He made a beautifully composed vegan dish, put it down. He's on table one. People are walking by going, what's that? And I'm like, don't worry about it. It's a vegan dish. And literally they were like, no, that looks good. And then one dish became, 2 dishes became 20% of our revenue. Because people are leaning into it. If you're eating in a restaurant, if we're fortunate enough to see them 2 or 3 days a week, which we get a lot, one day you might have a steak, one day you might have a piece of fish, and one day you're eating vegan.
Right.
So you're just trying to lean in a little bit.
But then you got the ice cream. I mean,
so the ice cream was just a natural fallout of like, well, we need a dessert. Some of the desserts this is 7 years ago. The desserts weren't very good. So I said to the chef, what do you know about ice cream? And he said, nothing. I go, okay.
Learn.
Well, let's figure it out. So like 6 months of taste this. No. Oh, that's good. And then we started to put it out. People started tasting it. And then one day somebody took it to go. And I was like, wait a second. That might be our Rayo's tomato sauce. Like, because you're looking for something organic. You're looking for something that like fits. You want to expand the brand.
Yeah,
but
totally
does
fits.
the world need another tomato sauce? Like, does the world need another cocktail sauce? Like, shoot me. But it was kind of organic, and now we're in like 8 or 9 different supermarket chains. We're in of all places. I mean, God bless them, they're amazing. Fat Burger nationwide. We're in Johnny Rockets nationwide.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, we're in Burger Lounge. So a lot
and
of
they
people,
have you ever had the hot girl sundae at Craig's? It's like.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, it can't be low cal though, right? I mean,
No,
it's
well,
like
okay.
9 scoops of vegan ice cream with everything on top, but it's awesome.
So Tinks is an amazing woman and gives great advice, and she's just got her finger on the pulse of like what's going on today, and that's why I think like she's exploding. But we met about a year ago. We kind of just, did you ever meet somebody and you're just like, oh, I get you,
Yeah.
and we're good. And so we did, and then we were opening up our ice cream store at Resorts World in Las Vegas. And it's a 100% vegan ice cream store in the middle of a casino.
Right.
If you don't think the world's changed, I got news for you. So I needed something that was going to be big and a little over the top, and I was talking to Tinks about it. And so we were like, I said, why don't you come on over one day? We'll make a big sundae. Chef put it together. Daniel, who's our head of operations, got this great big plastic martini glass. And it's like 7 or 8 scoops of ice cream. It's meant to feed like 4 people. And then it's a little over the top, but people love it.
It's amazing.
And so the ice cream is, animal free, obviously, and a third less calories. So
It's better, but you still don't want 9
better.
scoops.
No.
You got to split that.
No, but the thing is, the funny thing is, like I go back and forth between plant-based and not plant-based, but I don't eat regular ice cream just because it makes me feel kind of tired and sluggish. Yeah. So regular ice cream just makes me. I'm not allergic to it, but the vegan stuff makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Craig, taking it back to the early days of Craig's. I don't know if you remember this, Doug, but the location, the bunch of restaurants before that location was essentially a death sentence, right? Yeah. I mean, they just couldn't. So many people tried, and they just could not get it going. And that location, to me, I always thought it was weird because it's a great location. The street's kind of quiet. What was it about that place that everybody else had a hard time? about it. And were you aware of that when you moved in there?
So when I was taking people over there to show them where I was thinking about opening, they were like, dude, don't. It's you're gonna get
death sentence.
You're gonna get killed.
And this is the beginning of Melrose, right outside of Beverly Hills.
Okay, so it's Robertson and Melrose. It is literally the busiest intersection probably in LA, but we're 50 yards west, and it's like tumbleweeds. And people were begging me not to open. And I thought with my friends and the clientele that are going to be kind of sneaking in and out of there, it'll be perfect. Well, this is before TMZ.
Yeah, it's real hidden. It's real hidden.
Yeah, it's before TMZ and before phones and before everybody so it was for like the first year. It was actually a pretty cool, quiet little spot. And then there were no other restaurants on that street. So now there's Gracias Madre across the street. There's a La Veta down the street. There's a La Pier Hotel. So all of a sudden there's all this nightlife that didn't exist 10 years ago. And by the way, the landlords have not sent me a thank you note, which is really messed up.
Everyone on that street should send you a thank you.
But it's become like this really lively part of Melrose. But yeah, people were warning me off of it.
I had that thought. I was like, oh man, I wish Craig the best, but man, that place.
I got to be honest. Everybody, there was like a little buzz in this town, like, oh, Craig's leaving Dantana's. He's never going to be able to pull this off. And I think that's makes it even more exciting that you did. And
Well,
really,
you've been told that yourself. You know, somebody will look at you and shake their head and go, "God bless you." But
Conley told me that this morning.
at some point, you just need to be able to like go for it, and like you're gonna believe in yourself. Somebody said to me, "How did you live through COVID?" I go, "There isn't an option.
Right.
You have to figure out a way to keep this open."
Well, that was going to be my next question. I mean, as successful as Craig's is, and you have so many friends and so much support, was there ever a moment that you laid in bed at night and thought, like, man, we're in trouble?
9 months in. So every restaurant goes through the same kind of evolution, right? The first 3 or 4 months, and you know how this town is, right? Everybody wants to go in and profess their opinion. So you're packed, but everybody wants to say it's great, or nah, it's horrible.
This is what they like, or don't like.
I knew he wouldn't do it, or I knew this, or whatever. So everybody lays out their opinion, and so that happened in January, February, March, April, kind of May. And then in June, July, I didn't think about it. You don't have the tourist attraction because nobody really knows anything about the restaurant. So nobody knows about it. It's not on the hotel radars. So the summer got a little quiet. The food was inconsistent. Service was a little inconsistent. But the thing that thank God I was smart enough to do is agree with people and go, look, I get you. I agree with you. We're getting there. Give me a minute. I didn't put my foot in the sand and go, nope, this is the way it is, and I disagree. And I knew that things were inconsistent. So we just slowly started to make some changes. And then August, I literally remember going home to my wife, Lisa, and I said, I'm not sure we're going to make it. This literally could go either way. And that is a really scary spot because it's so public in LA. Yeah. Like everybody knows what's going on. And then in September, it started to kind of turn around. Chef Kirsten, really came on. He took over the kitchen. It started to find its footing. And then I remember in October, and I know this is going to sound weird to say, but I walked through the restaurant one day and I'm like, oh, okay, this is what it's going to be. Like it had enough wiggle room to kind of find itself.
Right.
And I don't know if that happens on a movie set or a TV show.
You know what? Sometimes and sometimes it doesn't, or sometimes you don't even know. So, but I think perseverance in anything, and your story really is. It's a great Hollywood story from starting from nothing and building your way to this, and you've now hobnobbed with everybody. So what I want to ask you is what's changed in the celebrity world, and I don't mean how they become celebrities. The 80s, there was so much drugs going on, and people were out of their mind. You said, I'm sure, I can't even imagine some of the stuff that happened at Tana's. Is it a mellower time in the celebrity world? Do you see anything crazy in Craig's?
Well, okay. So look, we've all been in this town a lot, and there's a lot of insecurity that comes with the business. And for whatever reason, people come to this town because they're missing something deep down in their soul, and they think that acting will do it, or the adulation of being famous will do it. So whatever it is, however we're broken, and I'm including myself in that, you feel like that'll fill it up. And then, you get swept up into dinners, parties, the clubs, and then there's always after parties at houses. And then all of a sudden it becomes a lifestyle where you're not going to bed until 4 or 5 in the morning, and then you're you got a call time, and like all of a sudden it just, this town can literally chew people up.
Yeah.
Really quickly. We've all seen it.
Chews them up, spits them out by the thousands a year.
So there by the grace of God go I, and we all have to kind of find our way through it. I do think that there is a focus on healthier living. I do think there's a focus on healthier eating for sure, and there's an awareness of mental health, right? So before, I don't know why it's coming to my mind, but like John Belushi, one of the things that like everybody loved about him so much is that he was crazy, like, but you never knew what was going to kind of come out of his mouth. But that's what made him so talented, and I think that people probably encouraged that to get what they needed out of that performance or whatever it is. And I have no firsthand knowledge. I think a lot of those behaviors were encouraged, whereas now today, I think a lot of it's kind of pulled back. And then there were no cell phones, there was no camera fit, there was no video. Whatever happened was like, whatever happens
Memories.
in Vegas, whatever happened in Vegas stays in Vegas. That was like the thing. But now there's like cameras everywhere watching everybody, and I don't think you can get away with it as easily. And I think that's kind of a good thing. I mean, I think it's kind of helping people kind of stay within a certain guideline. And then there's, no matter how famous you are or what's going on, there is certain behavior people will not put up with.
Right.
And sometimes it goes a little too far, whereas I think people need a little bit more play. But I think it's actually kind of helped everybody kind of rein it in a little bit. That's been my experience.
Yeah. No, it seems like it. I think that is an important part of it. That
Nobody wants to
gotten healthy.
Nobody wants to be called out, and everybody wants to live a little healthier. And by the way, we're all so busy. You think about an actor right now, or a producer, like you've got 16 channels to pay attention to. It's not just the movie theater. It's like, okay, I got to take care of Instagram and YouTube, and they're shooting something for like TikTok, huh?
Right.
What? Like and all of a sudden you're so busy that you don't actually have the time to have a hangover or to be recovering from a party. You've got to like stay in your game.
Well, I mean, it is wild to see how the changes have come. And the last time we talked on our other podcast about this. I just want to know what you thought, or if you ever saw this. Connolly orders a chicken parmesan at Dan Tannis. I'm sure he does the same at Craig's now.
I do, yeah.
Yes, he does.
He peels the cheese off.
Well, okay, so there's a method to his madness. So,
all right.
So what he says and is that if you cook it with the cheese. Mm-hmm. And then you take the cheese off.
It locks in something.
Something's been done to the Milanese, which is basically what it is. Is that the breadcrumbs have some sort absorb the cheese essence,
oil and the flavor.
Would your chef agree with this? Is what you're saying?
I don't know if we agree with it, but we allow it. Like
allow it. It'd be
me
great
out
if he got banned.
But that's the one thing that's the other thing about like Craig's that I do enjoy, and that is that you can pretty much get whatever you want, and we'll make whatever changes you want. I really don't like going into restaurants and being told that I can't do this or I can't do that.
I think that's also what you bring into that restaurant, because you are so friendly and personable. Everybody there is awesome. Like, there are so many restaurants that you walk into this town that you still, even after the pandemic, they just don't treat you like they really want you there. You know what I mean? And Craig's, you always feel welcome, and it always feels like a fun time.
You can't forget that you're in the hospitality business, and I keep reminding myself and everybody else, like you're in the business to take care of people, and you better enjoy it. And then the other thing is, like, never believe what people are writing about you, because I've been to restaurants where I'm like, this is the greatest place in the whole wide world, and you go back 4 months later and you're like, what happened?
Right.
Like, everybody's so serious, and like, it's like, stop. Yeah. So that's like, I don't want that to happen. And also, look, we all need a place to go and be ourselves. Yeah. And we've got a couple of friends that could be themselves a little too much, but they need that room to kind of like, you need a place to like let your hair down and feel safe.
Well, I need a place to be myself tomorrow night, so hopefully you can squeeze me in, because I forgot to call. I got high school friends in, but this was great. I mean, I really appreciate you coming in, and your story is the ultimate Hollywood story. It really is. And,
I love it. By the way, I was listening to the podcast, and I mean, the Dice story is dead on true.
Okay, sorry. Tell us. So Andrew Dice Clay, good friend of Kevin's and I and Craig, but you have this crazy weird connection.
So so see, he's one of those guys that's like, I'm going to get you a role, and I'm going to get you a role. I'm like, okay. So I read for this role, and I play the cousin of a guy, and every time I do something wrong, something gets cut off of me. Okay, that's in essence, that's who I am. Okay, so great. So we do the movie. He comes into town one night with his wife and his mom and dad, and I'm their waiter. And he's like, "What's your name?" I mean, I don't have your last name in my book. And I tell him my name, and he goes, "That's a effed up last name, but whatever." And as I say, Susser, his mom's head kind of like jerks up, and she goes, "Susser?" She goes, "You know a guy named Al?" And I go, "Yeah." She goes, "How well do you know Al?" I go, "Pretty well." She goes, "You know he's got a tattoo?" I go, "Yeah." She goes, "What's the tattoo?" I said, "It's a heart." She goes, "What's in the heart?" I said, "A name." She goes, "What's the name?" I said, "Jackie." She goes, "I'm Jackie." My dad was dating Dice's mom.
It's so insane.
All right. We got called up to Korea. All right. He's going to be a paratrooper. Thinks he's just not coming back. Tattoos her name on her arm. Survives. Comes back. Doesn't see her. Meets my mom at a Christmas party like 3 weeks later. Meets my mom. Gets married. Never talks to her again. 40 years later, the two of us are friends.
It is insane.
I mean, it's an insane
Without
story.
the Korean War, there's no Craigs, there's no Dice.
No, but I was always like, my dad.
Insane.
My dad was always like, "Don't get a tattoo. Don't get a tattoo."
Talk about
And I
the
was
butterfly
like,
effect.
it's crazy. But
And I would love to have had a camera on Dice's face. Ma, what do you mean?
no, but that's why he always refers to me as his little brother. By the way, that's a good impression.
Very good. And I'm gonna go. By the way, I'm gonna have dinner with Dice next week in New York. Did you ever go to Bellato's, Emilio's Bellato on Houston Street? Awesome,
good spot.
place. Yeah. So, Craig, you're the man. We love you,
I love it.
and you've always been. You were, to be honest with you, I'd be funny how I couldn't get a table. You were always a great guy, even to
Thank you.
the schmucks when I was 21 and had nothing.
Even to you, Doug.
Yeah, even the cheese peeling weirdos that come.
But that's half the fun. And congratulations on what you guys are doing. And look, I'm big fans of both of you. So it's a pleasure to be here. And thanks for asking.
All right, we will return. Kevin Connolly's return has been made. It's very exciting.
Well, this is really exciting that you actually sat in.
I was fired, and now they're pulling me off the bench. Now they're pulling me up, sent down to the minor leagues, and I got called up.
Greatness cannot be denied.
It cannot be denied. So anyway, everyone, Connolly will laugh at me, but when you come to town, call early, and you actually can get into this restaurant. But call way early.
You can get the 5:30s. You can get the 9:30s and 10s. Come in and experience it, and it's great.
And by the way, it's great at 5:30. Like it is always happening, and there's always some. So anyway, I'll see you tomorrow night, and thanks everybody for being here. All right.
Well, you really went to a great extent to get a reservation.
You are now tuned in to Hollywood Wayz with Doug and Breezy. Oh, hey Ted.